Good evening. Welcome to the September 26th session of the Bellingham City Council. Bellingham City Council meets all requirements of the State of Washington Open Meetings Act. We have one announcement. On Monday, October 17th, 2016, the City Council will host a public hearing on the Comprehensive Plan Update at 7 p.m. in Council Chambers. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have Boy Scout Troop 4036 joining us, and I would like to ask if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Roll call.
Here.
Dan Hamill.
Here.
Jane Knudsen.
Here.
Michael Lillequist.
Here.
Roxanne Murphy.
Here.
Pinky Vargas.
Here.
Terry Borneman.
Here.
Before we get started tonight, I'd like to just take a little moment of silence to recognize the families and the 5 lives that were lost in Skagit County, very close to us, on Friday night. So if we could, just in remembrance of them. Thank you. And we are going to move on to our public comment period. See who all we have signed up for this evening. And as a reminder, public comment is 3 minutes. We will ring a ding a bell when you have 30 seconds left. And a reminder, no jeering or clapping for announcements. And our first name on the list is Joseph McDonald, and then Chris Deal. Chris Diley, sorry Chris, didn't mean to mispronounce your name there. It happens, I do it to everybody. Joseph, are you?
My name is Joseph McDonald, and you know I have a speech amendment. The city of Bellingham is in holy war with the false doctrines of Christianity. People think that Jesus is going to burn everybody up forever. In the book of Ezekiel, chapter 28, verse 18, God said, I will devour you with fire and reduce you to ashes. With that being written, why should people expect to burn forever? Could it be misinformation passed on through the generations? The devil is deceptive and wants to take down as many people as he can with him. For those who think heaven is for real and is populated right now, despite Hollywood's BS, I have to ask the questions. What about the resurrection, and when did Lazarus be mad if he was taken down from heaven to live in this world again? Jesus said to his disciples, Lazarus is asleep. Then he explained, because his disciples didn't fully understand that Lazarus was dead. It is a misconception to think that glory begins immediately after death, without a soul sleep first. The best way I can describe a soul sleep is when the alarm goes off while taking a nap, and you say to yourself, in 5 minutes I'll get up. Then what seems like 5 minutes has been hours. The movie Heaven is for Real is a deception of the devil. The resurrected Christ said, I'll be with you always, even to the end of the world. Where is that blessed assurance? Christian kindness is taken for weakness in this city. I would also like to remind people that Halloween is coming up, and it's peculiar that the devil's holiday is on the date the Reformation began. Thank you, and God bless America while it's still here.
Chris, you're up.
Hi, my name is Christopher Diley, and I'm not sure how to get this to show on the projector. But
Elizabeth's going to come and help you.
Okay, I've got a visual prop. What it's going to show is the Anchorage area, and the colored dots that you'll see will be, it'll be the bears, brown bears and black bears that the Fish and Wildlife that they
Chris,
had
can you
colored.
hold on just one moment, just
Sure.
so Elizabeth can get back to her station, and then we'll
Oh,
get
okay, sure.
started, okay?
Yeah, then we'll hit
Thank
the
you
button.
so much.
All right.
All right.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, you'll see up there the colored dots. What those represent are the grizzlies and the brown bears, or grizzlies and black bears. That what they did was they had them collared, and they put cameras on them, so they could see where they were going and tracking their movements. If you go online, if you're interested in this, you can go online. It comes up under Anchorage Urban Bears, and it's very interesting. You can pull up the map that I have here, and you'll be able to see, like, you'll get specific information like such as like one of the bears is taking a night stroll through a neighborhood. These are all grizzlies, by the way, that these comments are about. Taking a night stroll through a neighborhood, walking around the neighborhood at midnight, walking around parking lots, sniffs blue tarp, foraging on Devil's Club berries, eating peanuts on ground and campground, stands, watches approaching coyote, changes course, then follows the coyote, chewing on caribou antler and moose antler in somebody's backyard, pushing on a chained gate, rubbing back on a light post, and feeding on a moose carcass. Those are just some of the comments. It's very interesting to read. But what that represents is the grizzlies, that you can see how when after they had them collared and tagged, that they didn't go up into the Chugach Mountains. Rather, they like to stay there in the lowlands. That's where the creeks and the salmon would be. So that's, I think, the reintroduction of the grizzlies into the Cascades, I think that would be a projection of what we could see here is the grizzlies would be coming down into the lowlands, and there would be human encounters. And as was noted in the USA Today article by Dirk Kempthorne in 2001, he pointed out that the federal program actually budgeted the cost of human life that would be lost due to bear attacks. So they actually know that bear attacks will occur and that there will be cost involved, and they've had it budgeted. He found that repulsive, or he objected to that, and oh geez, the time went by really quick here. But the point I wanted to make is that Chris Morgan at the university here, and the Outdoors magazine and the Seattle Times, what they do is they consistently say that it's due to fear that people oppose reintroduction of the grizzlies. But actually, when you think about it, fear is irrelevant. Human emotion is irrelevant. There will be attacks regardless of whether a person is afraid of attacks or not. And so my point is that that's ad hominem. When I researched their argument as to why grizzlies should be reintroduced into the Cascades, over and over again, it's stated that, it's because people are afraid that they don't want them having reintroduced. But that's ad hominem, and that's like a very dysfunctional argument. If they had better evidence, if the grizzlies were actually endangered, I would be in favor of it. But they're actually thriving and doing very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anyone who didn't sign up for public comment that wishes to speak? Going once? Twice? Okay, that ends public comment for this evening. We're going to move on to a recap of this afternoon's sessions. We started with an executive session this afternoon. We had 2 items. One was a labor relations bargaining strategy. The city's labor relations attorney and counsel discussed general strategies and timelines for collective bargaining. This was for information and discussion only, and no action was taken. Our second item was potential litigation. Legal department staff provided information to council regarding a potential litigation matter. This was for information and discussion only, and no action was taken. Our first committee of the day was Public Works, Public Safety, and Terry Borneman is the chair.
Thank you, Pinky. We had 2 items before our committee today. The first was a request for sewer services within the city's urban growth zone at 3214 Locust Avenue.
The existing residents at 3214 Locust Avenue has been informed by the Whatcom County Health Department that the septic system that serves the residents has failed. They are requesting to enter into a contract with the City of Bellingham for the retail sewer service as allowed under Bellingham Municipal Code Sections 15.36. The committee recommended approval, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion in front of us. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0, and that is for the request for sewer service within the city's urban growth area at 3214 Locust Avenue.
The second item was an ordinance of the City of Bellingham adopting a flat rate for water service in 2017, amending Section 15.08.250 of the Bellingham Municipal Code. In accordance with the state law, the city initiated the mandatory metering program to install more than 15,000 meters. Installation of the meters began in 2012 and will continue into the early 2017. In an effort to simplify business practices and provide clear expectations to customers, the change from flat to metered billing occurred on January 1st, following the meter installation for meters installed in the prior year. The current code does not include a flat rate category for 2017. As there will be several hundred meters to install in the fall of 2016 and early 2017, a flat rate needs to be codified to provide a mechanism for billing in 2017. The proposed ordinance enacts the appropriate flat rate. The committee recommended approval, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion in front of us. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And a committee, Terry?
Oh, and the committee, yeah. I was done. Checked out.
Next committee was Finance and Personnel, and Roxanne Murphy is the chair.
For the sake of time, I'll be very brief. We had one agenda item, and it was a police department staffing study. And so this provided information on police department needs, specifically how the police department would like to move to more proactive policing to help out our community, and the staffing levels that they'll need to reach that up to 2018. They also conveyed that, the study also conveyed that the department is short by 5 detectives. So this is the kind of information that the City Council will take in as we consider budget improvements and more support for the police department, and we appreciated this study. Information only, end of committee.
Next committee was Lake Whatcom Reservoir and Natural Resources, and Dan Hamel is the chair.
Thank you. We had one item before us this afternoon. We had an interlocal agreement dissolving the WIRA 1, or the Water Resources Inventory Area Joint Board, and establishing the Natural Resources Executive Board. This was proposed in order to integrate the functions of the Watershed Management Project Board, the WIRA 1 Salmon Recovery Board, and the Whatcom Local Integrating Organization, a component of the Puget Sound Partnership process, into a single board. This agreement retains the collaborative, multi-jurisdictional nature, making process, including tribal participation, and increases the efficiency of operations and natural resources management. The committee recommended approval to authorize the contract, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion in front of us. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And that's the end of that committee.
End of committee. Must be something in the water side. Sorry.
That's okay. We're going to move to Committee of the Whole. We had 6 items in front of us today. The first one was a technology update report by Marty Mulholland, who is our IT department director. She gave us a very extensive report out of all the things our IT department has worked on in the past year. A lot of those things that are not obvious to the public, but some of the most some of the things that people use the most are our court system and our permitting, and both of those have really been upgraded with technology and allowed us to do online things and really changed in regards to the way we're handling some of our court systems and our permitting. So we were very appreciative of her presentation. Just to let you know, they did do some statistical information on who watches what on VTV10, and we learned that City Council is 48% of the viewing audience for BTV10, so woohoo, aren't we exciting? So she also gave us a notice and discussed about the fact that our financial software is not serving us and is about 25 years old, and that is something we're going to have to discuss in our budget next year. But we thanked the IT department profusely for all the work that they do in the background, because they do great stuff for the city and most people don't even know it. So that was our first item. The second one was a discussion on sustainable services, and we have a presentation by Rick Sepler, our Planning and Community Development Director. For those of you who want to know a little bit more information on the update of this is a discussion on our level of service, is in our packet there was a process schedule that is very clearly outlined what projects they're actually going on and what the status of those are. Rick also defined two things that I think are really important for people to know the difference, and that is the level of service versus service levels. Because we talk about these things and we don't want to just assume that everybody knows what that means, so clarification I thought was really great. Level of service standards are measures of the minimum amount of a public facility which must be provided to meet the community's basic needs and expectations. So we have level of service for transportation, fire, police, and parks, and those are based on calls and response time, and so that's how level of service is done. Versus service levels, and that is what it actually feels like for the average person. So those are associated with the community's experience with both the state and the operation of public facilities like our roads, our parks, our libraries, etc., and the timeliness and efficiency of providing public services, public safety, permitting, licensing, etc. So just because we have these discussions all the time and we don't want to just use these terms without people recognizing what we're defining. Rick did give us some updates on where we are on many of our processes, and there'll be a biennial budget review and adoption for some of those ongoing processes. That continue are, some of those are the museum, evaluating our level of service, and surplus lands, and then of course EMS is up to the voters in November. So after that, we will, as we go along, we will be having updates on the rest of our level of service. And the next item we had was a subject on the waterfront district update and a potential for district energy. We had a presentation by Ted Carlson who outlined what district energy is, and for anybody who doesn't know in the audience, district energy is allowing heating from one source to expand and cover, or heating and cooling, to go through many, many buildings. So this allows for one central system for heating and cooling for many buildings. So it has many implications on efficiency, emissions, and environmental impact. The council had a very robust discussion on what this means for us, potentially because there could be $1 million tied to it for the city. And it's a big question for us because we are talking about level of service and the things that are affecting us every day and the things that are important to us that we're dealing with right now, and having to also look at what our future is and what our long-term goals are. So it was a very robust discussion, but we did have a motion that was, the council unanimously recommended approval of looking at the potential for district energy, and I so move. Any discussion? Anything anyone wants to add to that? No? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The next discussion also on alternative energy, it was to authorize staff to enter into negotiation for a hydropower system at the waterfront district development. Again, we had a pretty good, robust discussion on this in regards to how this will affect the city, the cost, the implications, etc. But council did unanimously recommend approval, and I so move.
Second.
Any discussion?
So this is an odd one procedurally. Our code talks about the committee giving the direction, and so that'll come back for a vote of the full council if something is negotiated. So you can just report out, you have reported out what the committee voted on.
We don't have to vote.
Correct.
Well, zippity-doo-dah. Next item. Thank you, Peter, for keeping us. Our next topic was on illegal residential units and enforcement strategies update. Now, this is a very hot topic in our community, as it has been for a long time. And hopefully I'll do a good job of kind of relaying some of the information that was portrayed to us today by Rick Sepler. He discussed all the things that we are doing for enforcement. We have now an enforcement, we have an FDE for a person who actually is dealing with enforcement on a full-time basis. We also are using our rental registration to look more in regards to enforcement. Just to give you some statistics, we have looked into 296 complaint-based claims. 93 of those are closed, and 64 of those came from the rental registration, and all but 6 have been addressed, and 12 have come out with violations. So just to give you an example of the things that we are doing in the community. Another thing that came up around this discussion is the fact that we have lots of legal limitations around enforcement. And for example, if we think someone is renting a property above their garage as a unit that is not sanctioned by the city, and we send them a letter and say, we think you have an occupant who is not authorized. If that person comes back to us and says, well, it's actually my son, there is nowhere for us to go with that. We have no ways to do legal enforcement when a constituent gives us information. We have no way to verify that, and we have no legal procedures to follow that through. So it kind of puts us in a bit of a quagmire in regards to what we can actually enforce and what the law is, and also what our resources are on the legal side. So I know there's been a lot of concern about enforcement, but the city is taking a very proactive approach to this, and we are trying to find solutions as much as we can by integrating other things like the town gown, and also our new staff. So is there anything else that someone wanted to add on that? I know it was a pretty hot topic of discussion. Councilmember Lillquist.
Small question. The example you gave kind of struck me this afternoon. If someone says, oh, no, I'm not renting it out, that's actually my son living there. At what point, if the city had credible evidence to the contrary, would we begin to not take them at their word? What if there are people who knew the person personally and said, no, he's not their son? What if there are neighbors who know the person and say, no, that's not his child?
So Peter Raffato, Legal Department. So getting into hypotheticals is challenging. I mean, I think, Rick Sepler said it best when each case, I think he was talking about the illegal units, but in terms of the rule of three, the devil's always in the details. And it's really challenging to take just a 2 or 3 sentence hypothetical and try to imagine all the permutations that could take in terms of what the thwarting may be or what evidence you can actually muster to take into a courtroom.
But the general principle, is there any amount of contravening evidence that would cause us to actually doubt the person's statement and therefore proceed despite their statement?
I mean, with sufficient evidence, absolutely. If you can meet the burden of proof, then you can take it into court and prosecute a civil infraction. But our experience has been that's very challenging when you're talking about essentially what are the relationships of the parties. You're talking about someone's home. You're talking about all the privacy issues and how do you gather the evidence. For example, I think I was talking to you earlier about in the civil infraction context, you cannot get an administrative warrant. So Washington law does not recognize administrative warrants. You can get warrants on criminal matters. You might want to question how much you want to put into a warrant process for that kind of activity, but those are some of the challenges that we deal with in gathering sufficient evidence to take and prove a case, in addition to just the resources it takes to actually gather that kind of evidence and testimony.
Councilman Borneman.
Yeah, I know Michael was saying is a hypothetical, but it's a very important question simply because the example used may lead somebody to think, all I got to do is say my son lives there. And the neighbors that live next to him who probably reported it, or the neighborhood organization that reported it or will report, will probably have nowadays a good idea about what's really going on there, and hopefully will relay that information, because I don't think Rick meant to say, oh yeah, all you got to do is say that and that's it, because I know he was just saying that, so that's an important question to clarify, so thank you, Michael.
I just want to ask the director, Rick Sepler, if there's anything you wanted to add on that. I don't know if that was the biggest. I just used that example because that was one of the ones that came out of today.
I know.
It struck me.
As I recall, when I raised the example, I said how it thwarts us. But again, you can follow up. We could check car registrations. There's a lot. But I think the key issue to take away is it's not as simple as has been asserted. The assertion was, oh, can't you tell that's a unit? So go over there and write him a ticket. And the challenge is the burden of proof sometimes falls on us. And we just can't go over because someone looks guilty and say, we're ticketing you. Prove your innocence. They're innocent till they're proven guilty. So that's the extent. That being said, again, if we get the letter back saying it's my son, we might go run the license plates and see their origin and see it's a different name, and then we'd write another letter. Oh, he borrowed the car, then we'd write another letter. It's the layers that keep going, and as a law school professor at University of California at San Francisco said, the challenge with the family definition and the challenge with the legal units is it's so easy to thwart us simply by responses. You don't have to be very clever. But we're talking about a number of approaches that would allow us to get around some of those issues where possible.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, anything else on that one? No? All right. Anyway, just follow up to what Rick said, it's not as simple as everyone thinks it is, and the city does care very much about enforcement and inventorying our units. Last item from Committee of the Whole was a continued discussion on the draft 2016 Bellingham Comprehensive Plan, Parks and Recreation and Open Space Chapter. Most of that was just reviewing the language that had been amended, and we had a motion to approve all the changes that was unanimously recommended this afternoon. And with that, I so move.
Second.
Do I need to make a motion for this? I should have asked
since
that.
these are in the nature of direction to bring back those revisions for a final vote, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. Well, we're just cutting things out left and right. Okay, so that was actually the 6th item on Committee of the Whole. So from that, we're going to move to approval of the minutes. We have one set of minutes in front of us, and this is for the evening on August 29th.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Older new business. Councilmember Murphy and Borneman.
I just have a quick public service announcement. There is a very big nonprofit called Safe Horizon, and Safe Horizon is asking community members throughout the United States to paint your left ring finger purple. And by doing so, you will hopefully start conversations with people about putting an end to domestic violence. And so this is called Put the Nail in It. So they want people to paint this finger purple, have the conversations, post on social media with the hashtag Put the Nail in It, and hopefully we can get conversations going to bring an end to this issue in our society.
Councilman Borneman.
Yeah.
Oh. We do?
We have the August 29th and the special meeting and September.
We approved the special meeting this afternoon.
Okay.
We did. So,
You're right.
okay, so we've got two sets of minutes then. We have August 29th and September 12th. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes,
Both of
that's
those
correct.
evenings? So we have approved August 29th, and we have September 12th minutes in front of us.
Move approval.
Second.
Yep. I was going to pass you a note, but I'm not doing that.
I ain't taking no more notes. All those in favor of passing the September 12th meeting minutes, please.
Aye.
Say
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, are we caught up? All right, we're going to go to Councilman Borneman for older new business.
Okay, I'm
Thank
busy
you.
today. I've got 3 items I wanted to bring forward.
Can you do one at a time? Because there's, I think, a bunch of us. Is that possible?
Okay, well, I can do it, but if it doesn't.
I would
okay.
prefer that you did, because
Okay,
then
the
everyone
first
gets a
one I
chance.
will do is, we've gotten a lot of calls, a lot of letters, a lot of other things about a Bellingham flag, and I've talked to the flag designer this week, and I told him I would bring this up today, and I've talked with Pinky. Pinky's been started some work on this as well, and just wanted to bring it up to the council that if there's no objections, Pinky and I would like to go forward and bring back to council a process to look at a process to possibly establish a official flag for Bellingham. Is that correct?
And just a clarification, official flag, not the one that everybody's talking about now. Any flag.
I don't know.
So-
That's what we need to.
I'm going to
Yeah.
defer to the mayor in just a
Yeah.
moment, because we did talk to the mayor and
Right.
to legal about how the process is that we have to go forth. Mayor Kelly.
Yeah, that, Terry and I were thinking of
Yeah.
the same thing, so I
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah.
was going to bring forward some options for you. And the 3 options were, I don't want anyone to know. The 3 options are to do nothing, okay, to decide you want to adopt the flag that was presented, or to create a new process that the staff would be happy to do for you, since the city would be responsible. Or it could be we'd let it go to another agency to do something a little bit broader than what was first done. So I think that for the council, it's, do you want to have a process, which we can bring you more information about, or do you want to say yes to the one you saw, or no? So there's 3 options.
Part of my initial idea of bringing this up was for us to have a discussion, bring it back to the council for a discussion.
That's fine.
To make a determination in terms of which direction we go after I know Pinky's talked with Peter and stuff, but to make sure we've checked on everything, put it as an agenda item so we can have a broad discussion, the committee of the whole, and look at it that way.
That's fine.
Not asking
Yeah,
us
no.
to make a decision for you. No.
No, that's fine.
Just to get it started and bring it back for a full discussion on what the council would like us to do. I just want to get it, we want to get it started.
Okay. I think a discussion would be wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Peter, for following that. So I'm going to move to April, and then myself, and then we'll go back to you. Okay,
Okay.
Terry?
So throughout the comprehensive plan process, we put language in the comprehensive plan regarding a demographic shift that's moving across America, with an understanding that the census data shows moved up from 2060 to 2044 will be a pluralistic society. No one ethnicity or race will have a majority. And with that, we do have many departments that offer career jobs and are currently hiring for these very long decade positions. And I'm really interested in seeing if, like, where we are currently with the demographics across our departments, and then also, you know, what are we doing so that we will be reflecting society later in the decade. So I'll make a motion to direct staff to bring a report to council of the current demographics of staff by department, specifically detailing race, ethnicity, gender, age.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'm just wondering about the size and scope of this report. A detailed one could be a lot of staff work. On the other hand, our own policy analyst might be able to do something very quickly. So I think it'd be really valuable information. I just want to know how big a request we're making.
Well, I already spoke with Brian, so maybe.
Brian Heinrich, Mayor's Office. The 4 areas that April mentioned are areas that we currently manage. So in talking with HR staff, I think it's actually pretty easily done to pull that information forward. My only question would be when you would like this by?
Oh, I just wanted to make sure that whenever it works within the plan,
Okay.
before the end of the year would be wonderful.
Sure, we can do
Sooner
that.
than later would be good too.
We do that. Okay.
Any other discussion? Oops. Any other discussion? No? Okay, so we have a motion in front of us to have a staff report on the demographics of our employees.
Staff by department.
Staff by department. Thank you, April. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Did you?
I voted.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay.
You'll hear me if I say no.
Well, it wasn't sure. Motion opposed? No? Okay, so motion carries 7-0. Next item, so I have an item for older new business. So myself and several other council members attended the York neighborhood meeting on housing. And there were some really great discussions by the community. And 2 standout things for me were the enforcement, which we talked about today, and the desire to have more community discussion on housing. Way beyond city council meetings, because people feel like they don't have an opportunity to talk about it. And the mayor agrees, and she is working on a proposal to identify as many options as possible. We all agree that we need to open up the discussion on housing, from homelessness to affordability. In order for us to have proper democracy, we need to gather information from multiple sources. That means we are going to have meetings, we're going to have surveys, etc. And the mayor will be bringing that forth soon. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say on that, Mayor Kelly?
Well, I think right now we're concentrating on the budget and building things into work plans. So hopefully the options could happen when we've built the capacity to do it into our work plans. And then it would probably be an after the first of the year activity. That doesn't mean that we couldn't start with the Community Development Committee or whichever committee you'd like to put it in, just to get some input before we talk about the different options of getting the information. But I do have a template that was developed by Larissa Benson, had to do more with the budget than it had to do with an issue, but it was a way to get community input from a bottom-up technique. So I'd be happy to share that or anything else that, of any other things that we know about that would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, and just know we are listening to our community.
Yeah, I would prefer next year. Let's get through the comp plan this year. That just get through that and then.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jean.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Is it a point to this or Terry? Okay, because Terry's up next.
So one of the things that sparked some of the most energy recently had to do with revisions to an ADU ordinance. I was just wondering when the planning department would bring that forward. If it's coming forward early next year, then the timing is all good. If it comes before that, then they're kind of out of sequence. Sorry, Rick, do you mind just letting us know when that might happen?
Well, as we move towards eventual adoption of the comp plan, it does provide us the policy base with no significant change. We anticipate coming forward early next year. We're starting work actually next week with Happy Valley on a pilot project, and that'll be incorporated into the draft ordinance. So Planning Commission before the end of the year, likely workshop meeting, then a hearing, and then before this body for a public hearing and discussion.
And this is much larger than the ADU discussion. I think they could be, one could happen before the other. They could be on a parallel track, because we're talking about the full gambit of housing in the community.
And the ADU is a tool, and largely at this point, based on direction, it's going to be mostly clarifications.
Okay. If no one else says anything, I'm going to let Terry do both of his for, okay?
Okay. Okay, the next item is an item that Dan brought to me about he wanted to get together to talk about, and that's the vacation homes, looking at a possible ordinance. It was brought up as this being an emerging item, and two of us were talking that, kind of hearing a lot about it, and it seems to be emerging really fast. So I had mentioned to the mayor that we wanted to bring something up, and the mayor suggested that wanted to know if first it would be okay if we had Mark Garner do the initial research, contact MRSC, and look the research on other city ordinances, how they might be addressing stuff. Basically might have seen in the news the county just passed an ordinance relating to that they've been working on for a year. So we're seeing this as emerging fast, and so we wanted to get council's permission. We talked to Mark about it, and to get council's permission to assign Mark to do the early research and other things on vacation homes in this city. And so I would move that we allow Mark to be able to do that as his time permits.
Second.
Okay. I don't know if we need a motion, actually, we can just.
Well, I just wanted to make sure. I know we need at least 4 votes to do it, so.
Okay,
well,
all right.
Yeah.
And actually, if you're asking your staff to do that research, then it was just proceeding to direct our staff. So you can do it just on your own.
I can't direct Mark. Dan can't direct Mark. We need at least 4 people
not
on
for
the
me,
council
for
to.
you.
Right.
Okay, good.
Yeah. No, I'm asking our council to allow Mark to be able to do that.
We'll do it as a motion then. Councilmember Lilliquist?
So let me complicate it a bit. I mean, this is an issue that I've actually talked with the planning director about a couple of times. I think I sent an email to you folks like 6 months ago when it first hit the Happy Valley neighborhood as a live issue. There actually is someone recently who I believe was called in to give an expert presentation on this topic at a conference. That's our own planning director. So our planning director is quite a resource, and so I don't think we can wall our analyst off from an in-house resource. So you know what I'm saying? I mean, there is in-house expertise, and Mark shouldn't proceed too far without that.
Mayor Kelly?
I definitely agree that we have in-house expertise, and right now he's working on the comp plan and other things. So this wouldn't be at the top of his list. And Terry had made the comment that it had been something that had been discussed for a long time. So instead of saying it has to wait, I was suggesting that Mark do the research part of it, because our planning director wouldn't be researching it. He'd be talking about the concept and the solutions.
Yeah, that's why I took it to the mayor first before bringing it to find out how it's her staff.
Okay, so do we want to do it as a motion then? All right, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0, and that is to direct Mark to do research on vacation rentals.
And the last one is an issue I've also talked with the mayor about, Sat Paul Sidhu had contacted me about an issue. A Sikh community would like to put a memorial in one of our city parks. And this kind of relates to something that April had brought up previously, that we memorialize good things, but we don't always memorialize some bad things that happened. And on September 4th, 1907, wasn't a great period for Bellingham, because the citizens rose up and they drove all the Indians, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh Indians out of the city of Bellingham. 100 years later, on 2007, in September, I was fortunate enough to be able to read a joint proclamation signed by Mayor Tim Douglas and Pete Kremen as a day of healing and reconciliation about that tragic event. The Sikh community would like to put a memorial in City Park relating to that event. And so I would like to come to council to talk about that. I talked with Mayor Kelly, and she agrees that, I mean, if ever there is an event that should be, this is one, but we need, I think we need a process to come forward. I'm not, on the process.
Right, and I really appreciated Terry bringing this to me first. We have been working very hard on what would be a fair process to use to let people memorialize things without it becoming a bigger investment, not an investment because they want to pay for it,
Yes.
but in our parks, there's not a lot of room for a whole lot of different memorials depending on what they are. Now, this is something the council has already taken a position on. One of the concerns that we had downtown is the gentleman that was killed on State Street. And he has a memorial next to the Color Pot. And his family wanted to do something. And what we have been talking about are sidewalk plaques that actually would educate people about what happened. They have them in Fairhaven about the Chinese issues and others. And when people are just walking in, in the neighborhood, they can learn things about what's going on. Now, I was sitting next to Sat Paul at the transit meeting last week, and his idea of what a memorial would be was much larger and inside a park and had benches and monuments and things like that. And so I think that we should have an internal discussion about how we do this, because there'll be a lot of people, there already are a lot of people that come to us with requests to memorialize something. And the way we limited it for the downtown was it had to do something with drunken driving. And that way we weren't having every sidewalk square have a memorial in it that was very important to an individual, but not necessarily a community kind of event. So I told Terry that I would research that, and I told Sat Paul I'd work with him about it, because he seemed very amenable to trying to do whatever it was that would memorialize it, but not necessarily, well, that we could handle. And so I don't know, Terry, if that's meets your interests.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it forward. He'd said that he'd also talked to you and things, so I told him I'd bring it, I figured by bringing it up, that way we'd get that process started so that we could do whatever needed to be done. And I'm not sure what, but...
Well, I think I start with talking, reviewing with Ted and with Leslie what our process is now. And I know we made some changes for downtown, but we'll bring you back some options.
Yeah, this was a significant incident in our history. Yeah. That's it for me.
Okay. Anyone else? Claire, for older new business? Okay, that is the end of committee, and we are going to move to the mayor's report.
The mayor has a couple things to talk about. The flag options, we already talked about. Reminder about Seafest, which is our new signature festival that's going to be Friday night and Saturday at the waterfront. It's at Boundary Bay, it's at Bellwether in the ballroom. It's pretty extensive. It's going to be at Bellingham Cold Storage. There was a wonderful program, there it is, that was in the Sunday paper. I mean, it's fabulous. We didn't know exactly what we would be getting for the Tourism Bureau's $75,000 investment, but this is a true public-private partnership where individuals have stepped up to have a variety of things. Hopefully there's something for everyone. So I just wanted to let you know that we are a sponsor of this, and I think it will be really fun, and I hope it doesn't rain all weekend. Also, as you all know, we had a tragedy at the Cascade Mall, and our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the victims that were killed there. We did send a response, a police presence, and some equipment down there, and it was, I mean, we're happy to do it. There's mutual aid that goes on with all the police and sheriffs and state patrol, and so we did that. And very pleased, of course, you've already heard announced that the suspect has been arrested. And we also were very conscious and on heightened alert, you know, within our own community, just to pay attention for anything that might seem suspicious. But I have not gotten any reports, obviously, that there was anything that happened.
Did Burlington request that we send down, or did we just hear the report?
You know, no, I think that we only go if we're requested. We don't just send our equipment. Yeah, no.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, no, because sometimes they might not want people outside the community to respond, depending on what the circumstances are.
Seeing the photographs of how many lights and sirens all in that one spot, I was wondering how. Yeah.
No, it was a request. Okay, so now we're going on to one approval and one for information only. I am reappointing John Stewart and David Willett to the Design Review Board, and I need approval from the council.
Approval. Second.
We have a motion in front of us to approve John Stewart and Dave Willett to the Design Review Board. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, and then just for your information, I am reappointing Elizabeth Jennings and Brian Miller to the Community Development Advisory Board. And that's all I have for tonight.
Consent agenda.
Move approval.
Yep.
We have a motion in front of us to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Final consideration of ordinances.
Agenda Bill 21330, an ordinance of the City of Bellingham, Washington regarding the latecomer process, amending chapters 14.02 and 2.56 of the Bellingham Municipal Code.
Second.
It's going to make up Graham.
Dan Hamel,
Aye.
Gene Knutson,
Yes.
Michael Lillquist,
Aye.
Roxanne Murphy,
Aye.
Pinky Vargas,
Aye.
April Barker,
Aye.
Terry Barneman.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 7-0.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us, especially Boy Scout Troop 4036. Maybe someday some of you will be sitting up here. We can only hope. Yeah. Do it. Our next meeting is October 10th. Until next time, good night. We are adjourned.